Women were challenged with expressing themselves in a partial system that generally refused to grant merit to women's views. Women who spoke out against the partial system of gender roles may be in the risk of being exiled from their communities, and vocal unmarried women in particular were the targets of witch hunts. Women were viewed to be privileged, freely, and dainty creatures who had no perception of the real world. Cultural and political events during this century increased attention to women's issues such as education reform, and women were increasingly able to speak out against injustice by the end of the 18th century. In this period, their thinkers focused on science and technology and aimed to control nature instead of embrace it. They also believed in the importance of a social hierarchy and the maintenance of aristocracy. During this period, the value of male hegemony kept women in a role of domesticity that was limiting and unsatisfying. The values of restraint and refinement did not allow for an increase in female independence. Fanny Burney was one of the authors during this period who tried to voice out her opinions through her book Evelina, or also known as A Young Lady's Entry into the World, written in 1778. In this novel, the main character Evelina experienced her own dilemmas about marriage and romance that were previously only depicted as masculine problems. This book was regarded as an early comedy of manners that depicts the coming of age of a young woman subject to the whims of irresponsible men and the restriction of English society. This novel revealed that the women have their own domestic problems, often ignored by men. During Romantic period, the concept of women rely fully to men was still existed. They were expected to obey their husband and no legal rights toward their own properties and custody over their child. Later, society began debating the proper role of women. Not only were male poets and writers, but women were increasingly prolific writers, writing about their own thoughts and experience on the topic to advocate their treatment to be equally as men in the society. Jane Austen used her first book, Sense and Sensibility, to proclaim the way how women are supposed to be and treated by society. Even though her novel takes place in the situation when women's roles are limited and discriminated by men, but her novel tells people the opposite way. She portrays her women characters as a thoughtful, clever, ambitious, and sometimes scheming women. The characters like Lucy, Fanny, and Mrs. Farrell had exerted some power and agency even though they were living within a male-dominated world. The female character like Lucy even have the urge to mention the conquest of the man. This novel is able to educate society how women can be so powerful and superior even within a sexist society that boxes women into limited gender roles. She also used a second book, Pride and Prejudice, to portray the same issue. The character of Elizabeth was opposite with the traditional women, where she is no longer someone to please males, nor the one to obey patriarchy. She is confident, independent, and charming in personality. This view reflects the confidence Austen has on women. She had a new view of women, which shown in the description of Elizabeth's character from different aspects. Mary Shelley wrote a scary yet interesting novel named Frankenstein. The death of the foolish female characters happened because they rely heavily on men. It was believed she created the characters to instruct women that the weak will never survive. The status of women in the 19th century was still the same as in another period. During this era that symbolized by the reign of Victoria, women did not have rights, abused and oppressed as a result of policy in which discriminatory laws were existed. The Bronte sisters managed to voice out about feminism through their fiction, Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights. These books were representative work reflecting women's call for equality. Both characters portray how society should acknowledge their opinions and views as important as men in the society.